let us take a moment to discuss Bobi Wine, aka Robert Kyagulanyi, the party president for the National Unity Platform. Well, as you know, he's been on a countrywide tour in Uganda, having started in Mbarara or during the final week of August, and he's been going on since, visiting different towns and giving speeches and holding rallies. I've discussed several times so far that there's not been much resistance by way of security forces. There's not been disruption by like army or police as we would have expected. So I'm kind of surprised that they're just letting him go around from town to town and, talk to his supporters. And speaking of supporters, man, I've been seeing pictures from some of his events, and my gosh, the crowds are huge. Huge crowds. He definitely has a lot of support, and so if I were either the president or a part of the ruling party, I would be feeling very nervous right now, because if all that support can translate into votes, well, the 2026 elections might tell a different story from what we're used to, you know? Haha. Well, while addressing residents in Luweero, Robert Kyagulanyi AKA Bobi Wine made some remarks that has got a lot of people feeling anxious. What did he say? Well, he said, among other things, that Uganda is currently under the rule of a small group, that is to say, Museveni and his family and his cronies. He said, quote, Uganda is being ruled by a group of small people who are controlling everything. These are the people who have enslaved us on our own land. Wow. I need to tell you these things because I am taking on the responsibility to make you people aware of the truth. What is sad is that the Museveni regime is using fellow Baganda to oppress the Baganda. This is what he told the residents of Luweero, where he had gone to meet with supporters. And if you saw the video clips circulating, as he was giving the speech, the crowd was really excited. You could really see that his remarks were resonating with the masses in attendance. So it looks like a fairly popular sentiment, especially among the Baganda. Robert Kyagulanyi also urged the people of Luweero and Buganda to stand up and fight for the land of their ancestors. He said, quote, fellow Baganda, who bewitched us? Museveni thinks he's going to build a dynasty on the land of our ancestors in Buganda over my dead body. That will not happen. This is what he said during that event. He made several allegations against the government, including about how some of the government officials are conniving with big Chinese companies to chase people, the Baganda, of course, off of Lake Victoria. He also attacked the president, who he said is attempting to install his son Muhoozi as president of Uganda. He said some very unkind things about Muhoozi too. Now, surprisingly, even as he was making these remarks and in the period that followed, no one's really gone after him. Like, you would think that this would immediately antagonize the ruling regime, the president in particular and his family, and that they would take steps to apprehend him, arrest him, detain him. But nothing. He gave a speech, the crowd cheered, and he went off his merry way. Of course, on social media, it was a bit of a different story. Many people that are sympathetic to the regime or supporters of the regime, came out to condemn Robert Kyagulanyi's remarks, essentially calling it very sectarian, very divisive. Now, let's not forget that Bobi Wine or Robert Kyagulanyi, I know it's okay to use the names interchangeably. It is the same person, but can get confusing sometimes, right? So they're accusing him of acting in a way that is unbecoming of a person that's aspiring to be the president of the whole nation. See, for him to speak to a predominantly Baganda audience and essentially speak in ways that make them feel like they're being uniquely targeted by the government might not bode well for the future unity of the country. That's some of the criticism that he has received for those remarks, and I could see some merit to that, because we are a multi-ethnic country. I think there's over... Did I read somewhere that there's over 3,000 languages in Uganda? I think we're the most ethnically diverse country on the continent. And so to then speak to an audience comprising of the largest ethnicity or the ethnic group, and then essentially arouse or inflame their anger and passion and to just make them feel uniquely targeted. This, to some people, was reminiscent of the kinds of things that were being said prior to the 1994 Rwanda genocide, right? And people, especially of the Banyankole tribe, were feeling quite anxious, and many took to social media to argue that it's unfair to lump them all in, with the ruling regime, because that's kind of the narrative, right? That's how the narrative goes. It is the Banyankole, or some will say. And yet, if you travel to, different areas in Western Uganda, you will still see massive poverty, as you will in other areas. You will see unemployment. You will see hunger. You will see poor schools and, ill-equipped medical centers and hospitals, if any at all. I mean, they're suffering many of the same problems that the rest of the country is suffering. And, if you want to direct any criticism at those who might be, I guess, taking advantage of the country and enriching themselves, I think it would be fair to argue that those allegations should be directed at the small clique or the small group of people that are responsible for this. Now, it so happens, and this is where it gets sticky, that, this small clique or small group, yes, predominantly they come from a certain region of the country and are of a particular tribe. But then this doesn't mean that the entire tribe or the entire population of people comprising that tribe are equally culpable. And so I think as a political leader, which he's a leader of a major political party. It is the major opposition political party in Uganda. And seeing as he's aspiring to be the president of Uganda for all Ugandans, perhaps his remarks might have been, handled better. He may have phrased things better. And to try to make clear that really they're not trying to single out any particular group, but rather that he is singling out particular individuals that he may accuse of being corrupt. That would be fair. That would be a fair statement. But to imply that it is tribe against tribe might stoke a lot of tension, a lot of division, and it could result into something quite dangerous, And I know it's easy to throw around, Rwanda genocide. I mean, that's, it's easy to just go to that, but perhaps one wouldn't be too hyperbolic in making that comparison. Because whoever thought that what we saw in Rwanda could ever unfold? We just thought, hey, someone's on the radio calling his fellow countrymen cockroaches. Okay, all right, let's carry on. But my friend, these kinds of discussions went unchallenged and the end result was over 1 million killed, right? So for now, I guess Bobi Wine is still adamant in holding these sentiments. I don't know if he wishes to discuss them further, or is he even going to ramp it up and amplify it. Some are saying that he made those rather provocative remarks specifically with the aim of getting arrested. That because his tour thus far has been uneventful, and by that I mean there's not been arrests, scuffles, police interference, tear gas, that sort of thing, that maybe, and this is what some are alleging, that his tour isn't really having the impact he would have wanted. Because you might say it's a cynical view, but yeah, whenever there are altercations between security forces and opposition political parties, usually it provides an opportunity to be in the spotlight. You will be making headlines, and it's quite easy to fundraise on the back of that, because now, you can play the sympathy card. Hey, they're trying to oppress us, but, if you're being left to your own devices to just say what you want to say, the impact may be less by comparison. So some are alleging that, because he feels the tour isn't having quite the bang that he may have wanted it to, he's turning up the heat on the rhetoric in order to provoke the government to react. And then once they do react, then once again, he can ride that wave of public sympathy and, anger towards the government. And then I guess it might help his political aspirations. I don't know. I wouldn't be too quick to buy into that kind of conspiracy. But what we can say for sure is, he ain't trying to mince words. He's going for the jugular. He's just coming right out and saying what he thinks. Now, you might agree or disagree with what he actually said, but you can't deny that it certainly resonated with a lot of people. What are we to do with that? That's the question we need to ask. Now, while it is still the case that Bobi Wine still remains a free man even in spite of making those spicy remarks, it is not as though the police have not noticed. According to the police spokesperson Fred Enanga, that as part of the probe into Kyagulanyi's alleged hate speech and sectarian remarks, the Criminal Investigation Directorate are going to be combing through social media for the videos in question in which, those remarks are being made. And also they're going to look at other sources as part of their investigation. So he is being investigated, and he's being accused of fanning tribalism and of uttering hate speech and sectarian remarks. We'll see where that goes. Well, crazy times ahead in this country called Uganda. Brace yourself for more to come. And keep listening to The Fatboy Show on your number one station, RX Radio.
RX Radio.